Women of the Wall is a multi-denominational feminist organization based in Israel whose goal is to secure the rights of women to pray at the Western Wall, also called the Kotel, in a fashion that includes singing, reading aloud from the Torah and wearing religious garments. Pew Research Center has identified Israel as one of the countries that places high restrictions on religion, and there have been limits placed on non-Orthodox streams of Judaism. One of those restrictions is that the Rabbi of the Western Wall has enforced gender segregation and limitations on religious garb worn by women. When the women of the Wall hold monthly prayer services for women on Rosh Hodesh, they observe gender segregation so that Orthodox members may fully participate. But the use of religious garb, singing and reading from a Torah have upset some members of the Orthodox Jewish community, sparking protests and arrests. In May 2013, a judge ruled that a 2003 Israeli Supreme Court ruling prohibiting women from carrying a Torah or wearing prayer shawls had been misinterpreted, and that women of the Wall prayer gatherings at the Wall should not be deemed illegal. In January 2016, the Israeli cabinet approved a plan to designate a new space at the Kotel that would be available for egalitarian prayer and which would not be controlled by the rabbinate. Women of the Wall welcomed the decision, but the plan is facing opposition from other factions, including some ultra-Orthodox members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's governing coalition, who have threatened to withdraw over the government's plan to create non-Orthodox prayer space at the Western Wall in deference to the women of the Wall. According to Ronit Kampf, the group's struggle has been the most covered women's issue in the history of the Israeli media. Summary: from the start, Women of the Wall included Orthodox members and opted to run the service according to Orthodox standards. Nevertheless, some Orthodox individuals were offended, including some who call themselves Orthodox feminists. Women of the Wall is a multi-denominational group, including Reform, Conservative and Orthodox members. Since 1988, the group has faced a legal battle for recognition of the right to pray at the Western Wall. The presence is deemed offensive by Orthodox worshippers at the site, and there have been numerous court proceedings to settle the issue. On the fast of Esther chapter 1989, ultra-Orthodox men, outraged by the women's singing, hurled chairs and verbal insults at the women, which resulted in the deployment of tear gas to quell the violence. In 2010, police arrested two Haredi men at the Western Wall Plaza on suspicion that they threw chairs at a Women of the Wall group that was praying aloud at the site. In 2009, the first woman was arrested for praying with a tallit. The struggle by the Women of the Wall is seen by the Israeli Orthodox religious establishment as an attempt to undermine their influence in an effort to introduce religious pluralism. Opposition from the Orthodox also stems from halachic concerns and from a general disdain for non-traditional ritual in an area they claim serves as an Orthodox synagogue. Orthodoxy does not permit women to constitute a minyan, and while the women have not considered themselves as doing so, this has not calmed ultra-Orthodox sensibilities. Initially, the group did not receive support from Israel's primarily Orthodox religious authorities. Supporters highlighted the fact that only in Israel are Jewish women prohibited from praying according to the custom in a public location, and a 2003 High Court ruling which prevented them from conducting prayer services at the Wall was overturned in 2013. Some Orthodox feminist organizations have voiced support for the right to pray at the Kotel. The organization was created by Jewish women, including some from the diaspora, and a significant number of participants are American immigrants, a part of the English-speaking community. This is in part due to the differing social conditions of Orthodox women in the United States and Israel respectively. Shmuel Rosner describes the phenomena as an American imported battle for religious pluralism, religious moderation and tolerance. He notes that civil rights and feminism are American imports, late in coming to Israel. History. 25 years after the founding of WOW, a poll by the Israel Democracy Institute in May 2013 found that about half of the Israel public supports the Women of the Wall, and that men are more inclined to support the women's prayer group than women. The poll was conducted by Professor Tamar Herman, who noted that Women of the Wall received highest levels of support from educated, secular, Ashkenazi Israelis. However, the group was not always met with support from the majority of Israelis, as it is today. Women of the Wall was founded in December 1988 at the First International Jewish Feminist Conference in Jerusalem. On December 1, 1988, during the conference, Rivka organized a group of multi-denominational women to pray at the Western Wall. 70 women carried a Torah scroll to the Western Wall, and Rabbi Deborah Brin led a prayer service for them. Francine Klagsbrunn was the one chosen to carry the Torah at the head of the group, making her the first woman to carry a Torah to the Western Wall. When the conference ended, a group of Jerusalem women led by Bona Devorah Haberman continued to meet at the Kotel and formed Women of the Wall to assert the right to pray there without hindrance. Women of the Wall has fought a legal battle asserting a right to conduct organized prayer at the Kotel and challenging government and private intervention in its efforts. After demanding police protection, the government was given 9 months to make arrangements that would allow them to pray unhindered. At the end of this period, the Ministry of Religion ruled that only prayer according to the custom of the place was to be permitted and that the sensitivities of other worshippers must not be offended. The Women of the Wall then petitioned the Supreme Court to recognize the right to pray at the wall. A temporary ruling was given which stated that the status quo should be enforced until they reached a final verdict. The struggle has led to 2 Israeli Supreme Court decisions and a series of debates in their Knesset. In its first decision, on May 22, 2002, the Supreme Court ruled that it is legal for Women of the Wall to hold prayer groups and read Torah in the women's section of the main Kotel Plaza, undisturbed. 4 days later, Haredi political parties including Shas introduced several bills to overturn the decision, including a bill that would have made it a criminal offense for women to pray in non-traditional ways at the Western Wall, punishable by up to 7 years in prison. In response, MK Naomi Chazin said, "What have we become? Afghanistan, Iran." Although the bill did not pass, the Israeli Supreme Court reconsidered its earlier decision. On April 6, 2003, the court reversed itself and upheld 5-4 the Israeli government's ban prohibiting the organization from reading Torah or wearing talit or tefillin at the main public area at the wall, on the grounds that such continued meetings represented a threat to public safety and order. The court required the government to provide an alternate site, Robinson's Arch. Plans to construct a small prayer site at Robinson's Arch were unveiled in October 2003. WOW leader Annette Hoffman reacted harshly to the plan. "Now we're going to be praying that an archaeological site at an alternative site for the Jews of a lesser degree." The site was inaugurated in 2004. Until recently, it was illegal for them to do so under Israeli law. In December 2012, following pressure from non-Orthodox U.S. Jews, Nathan Sharansky, the chairman of the Jewish Agency for Israel, was asked by the Prime Minister to find a solution to the dispute. In response to the detentions at the wall in February 2013, Sharansky said, "When I listened to the very partial presentation, I am fully with them. When I listen to the other side, I have to accept that they also have logic. We'd have to find a solution in which nobody will feel discriminated against. By April 2013, Sharansky had received tens of thousands of letters and emails from American Jews on the matter, but not even 100 from Israelis. In March 2013, 3 women MKs used the parliamentary immunity to don prayer shawls and join the Women of the Wall in a show of support after 10 women had been arrested the previous month. MK staff Shafir said, "I usually do not wear a talit, but it is my honor and duty to stand here and protect the rights of all Jews from around the world to pray as they desire and believe." Tamar Sandberg said, "I demand to enter. The extremist stream's interpretation of the holy places law is unacceptable to me, and I refuse to leave the prayer shawl outside. I am a secular woman, but I identify with these women's struggle for freedom of expression and religion." Subsequently, a number of MKs condemned their actions. MK Aliza Lavi, who herself supports the right of the women to assemble, said she was shocked that fellow MKs decided to blatantly disobey the law and ignore Supreme Court rulings. MK Miri Regev called the MK's attendance a provocation and referred to the group's anarchistic actions, which had turned into a national sport among the extreme left in Israel. MK Uri Ariel called the women radicals and suggested that their gross violations at the site may lead to civil war. In May 2013, after bowing to pressure from non-Orthodox diaspora Jews, the government issued a directive for the legal dispute to be solved. A subsequent appellate court ruling gave permission for the Women of the Wall to hold services at the site after deciding that the prayer and ritual were not against the local custom, and since the women did not use physical or verbal violence, they could not be held responsible for any resulting disturbances. The Rabbi of the Western Wall, however, continues to view the presence as a provocation. They have the support of large American non-Orthodox denominations, which view the issue of women's rights to pray at the wall as a high-profile opportunity to promote gender egalitarian Jewish prayer, which most Israelis have never experienced. They also want to remove the control of the holy site from the hands of the Western Wall rabbi. Their arrests have been criticized by groups promoting religious pluralism in Israel. The Central Conference of American Rabbis condemned the arrest of Annette Hoffman and called it a desecration of God's name. In October 2014, Women of the Wall launched a campaign to encourage girls to have the bat mitzvah services at the Kotel. Unlike most diaspora Jewish girls, Israeli Jewish girls typically do not celebrate a bat mitzvah by reading from the Torah portion. The ad campaign features girls wearing prayer shawls and holding a Torah scroll in front of the wall. The ad, placed on Israeli buses, has the caption, "Mom, I also want a bat mitzvah at the Kotel." The Western Wall Heritage Foundation, which is controlled by the Orthodox and oversees events at the wall, not only runs a business of bar mitzvahs for boys that has excluded girls from their offerings, but has refused to permit women to carry Torah scrolls at the wall. Several of the campaign ads were soon vandalized in Orthodox neighborhoods. The ad campaign received international publicity when religious extremists carried out violent attacks in Jerusalem. About 50 Jewish men in the ultra-Orthodox neighborhood of Mea Shearim engaged in hurling rocks and slashing tires of public buses carrying ads for the egalitarian services for girls. On October 24, 2014, a bat mitzvah was celebrated by the group at the wall using a miniaturized Torah scroll which they smuggled in. Although the women have won the legal right to pray in the fashion at the wall, Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovitz, the supervisor of the Western Wall, has refused to allow the women to use the Torah scrolls distributed in the men's section or to bring their own. The group said that a reading from the Torah scroll in the women's section was an historic event. On December 18, 2014, Women of the Wall held a women's candle lighting at the Kotel. For Hanukkah every year, a giant menorah is erected in the men's section of the Western Wall, and each night of the 8 nights of the festival, male rabbis and male politicians are honored, while women are kept at a distance where they are barely able to see the ceremony. At the Women of the Wall ceremony, women brought the personal menorahs. They invited Jews around the world to light a candle for WOW on the third night of Hanukkah. WOW sent a letter to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu requesting a large menorah also be erected in the women's section, just as there is one in the men's section. But Netanyahu simply forwarded the letter to Western Wall Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovitz, who accused WOW of ulterior motives of trying to change the customs at the wall. Responding to Rabinovitz's accusation, Annette Hoffman noted, in his letter, Rabbi Rabinovitz speaks of bringing together and uniting the nation, and yet his actions exclude and discriminate against women as if women are not part of the same nation. Since he was chosen for this public position, Rabinovitz has never invited Women of the Wall or any other women to participate in the ceremonies or to be honored with the lighting of a candle at the Kotel on Hanukkah, despite the fact that women are obligated equally to men in this religious act. Quote, initially, the personal menorahs the women brought to the Kotel were confiscated, but they were returned when police were called. In April 2015, Women of the Wall participated in reading from a full-size Torah scroll at the organization's service at the Western Wall. 100 Torah scrolls are kept for the use of the men's side of the Western Wall, and male supporters of Women of the Wall passed a Torah scroll across the barrier into the women's section for Women of the Wall service. Eyewitnesses reported that as women were reading from the scroll, several ultra-Orthodox men physically attacked WOW's male supporters and then entered the women's section in an unsuccessful attempt to retrieve the Torah scroll. Police intervened and stopped them. Following the Torah reading service, WOW members in the women's section danced with the scroll. This is the first time that Women of the Wall can stand up and be counted as a part of the public, proclaimed Annette Hoffman, the chair of WOW. Nothing you could say could tear me away from my Torah. Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovitz, the head of the rabbinic authority of the Western Wall, called the women's Torah reading a provocation and said the Israel police and employees of the Western Wall had to work hard in order to avoid bloodshed. In January 2016, the Israeli cabinet approved a plan to designate a new space at the Kotel that would be available for egalitarian prayer and which would not be controlled by the rabbinate. Women of the Wall welcomed the decision. A group calling itself Original Women of the Wall, which includes founding members of WOW and which contends that WOW has broken away from the original and ongoing charter of the group. Original Women of the Wall does not agree with the compromise and said its members will continue to hold prayer services at the Western Wall, praying as is the custom, with prayer shawls and tefillin. Palestinian Minister of WAQF and Religious Affairs Youssef Idias protested that the proposed egalitarian prayer section at the Western Wall violates the status quo agreement governing the area. In March 2016, MK Meir Porush was reprimanded by the Knesset Ethics Committee in 2016 because they determined that he deviated radically and blatantly from the accepted way to express oneself in their Knesset or what is appropriate for an MK. Quote, In a speech before the Knesset, Perush said that the women of the wall should be thrown to the dogs. The committee noted that such scornful remarks would be deplored harshly had they been spoken about Jews by any other government outside Israel. Perush responded by saying that if women of the wall refrained from eating non-kosher food, he would apologize to them. Events since the ruling of April 24, 2013 arrests. In the struggle for civil rights and religious freedom, members of the group have been willing to engage in civil disobedience and become prisoners of conscience. Several members of the group have been arrested for acts that women of the wall members say are illegal under the Supreme Court ruling. Nofrat Frankel was arrested for wearing a talit under her coat and holding a Torah in November 2009. She was not charged, but she was barred from visiting the wall for 2 weeks. The group's leader, Annette Hoffman, was interrogated by the police in January 2010, fingerprinted, and told that she could be charged with a felony over her involvement with women of the wall. The questioning concerned WOW's December service, during which Hoffman said she did not do anything out of the ordinary. On July 12, 2010, Hoffman was arrested for holding a Torah scroll. She was fined 5,000 nis and given a restraining order according to which she was not allowed to approach the Kotel for 30 days. On October 16, 2012, Hoffman was arrested again. She was accused of singing out loud and disturbing the peace, and was released from police custody the following day. The following morning, Leslie Sachs and board member Rachel Cohen-Yeshurun were detained for disturbing public order. Hoffman described the ordeal. "In the past, when I was detained, I had to have a policewoman come with me to the bathroom. But this was something different. This time they checked me naked, completely without my underwear. They dragged me on the floor 15 meters. My arms have bruised. They put me in a cell without a bed, with 3 other prisoners, including a prostitute and a car thief. They threw the food through a little window in the door. I laid on the floor covered with my talit. I'm a tough cookie, but I was just so miserable. And for what? I was with the Hadassah women saying Shema Yisrael." On February 11, 2013, 10 women who were part of WOW, including 2 American rabbis, were detained for praying at the wall and, as a result of them wearing the garments that they're not allowed to wear specifically at that site. The women were barred from returning for 15 days. In March 2013, 5 women were detained. They were subsequently released without restrictions when the judge ruled that they had not been responsible for creating a disturbance, ruling instead that it was the Orthodox protesters who were creating a disturbance. In April 2013, a group UK progressive rabbis protested to the Israeli ambassador, calling threats to arrest women saying Kaddish. Shocking. On July 17, 2015, Women of the Wall board member Rachel Cohen-Yeshurun was arrested by police in the prayer section of the Kotel after smuggling in a Torah scroll to the Kotel in the early morning before the Rosh Hodesh service began. On June 7, 2016, Women of the Wall executive director Leslie Sachs was detained by police for smuggling a Torah into the Kotel, and according to a statement released by Women of the Wall, detained for disturbing the public order. Women of the Wall's position. The Women of the Wall have consistently claimed there is no single custom of the place, and that the right to pray is a religious freedom enshrined in Israeli law. They repeatedly stress that the group are not Reform Jews, but come from all affiliations, and that their conduct strictly adheres to Orthodox Jewish law, and that the prayer is genuine and not a political stunt. The central mission is to achieve the social and legal recognition of our right as women to wear prayer shawls, pray and read from the Torah collectively and out loud at the Western Wall. Israeli Orthodox establishment's position. The Israeli Orthodox Jewish religious establishment is opposed to the services conducted by the women of the wall. Orthodox rabbis claim that even if such a manner of prayer is theoretically permitted by Jewish law, it is against Jewish custom. Even if support can be found in Jewish legal sources for various activities, the force of custom is equal to absolute law, and it is the custom which determines proper conduct. Various legal opinions recorded in halacha cannot be manipulated to introduce new forms of prayer. The opinion of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, which is cited by women of the wall in support of the cause, is rejected by the establishment, as they viewed the women of the wall as being motivated by feminism rather than a sincere spiritual desire. The struggle is also seen as an attempt to undermine their influence and is a strategy for non-Orthodox groups to gradually gain official recognition at state level, paving the way for the introduction of religious pluralism in Israel. In a letter to the group, Yehuda Getz, the government-appointed rabbi of the Western Wall, urged them to stop straying from the hallowed traditions of generations of Jews before you, and in 1989, the Israeli chief rabbi Avraham Shapiro and the religious affairs minister suggested that the women pray individually, silently, and preferably at home, not at the wall.